That's enough. Elvis's first professional audition lasted precisely 4 minutes before he was halted, but what transpired in the parking lot afterwards made him a legend. In the parking lot of Sun Records in Memphis, Tennessee, on January 4, 1954, 19-year-old Elvis Presley was seated in his dilapidated 1942 Lincoln Continental. He could hardly handle the driving wheel since his hands were shaking so much. For 45 minutes, he had been sitting there attempting to summon the bravery to enter that door. 4 years, Elvis had dreamed about this moment. The magic happened at Sun Records, the birthplace of country music stars and blues legends. Sam Phillips, the proprietor, was known for identifying undeveloped ability and transforming it into something exceptional. This belonged to Elvis. It was his opportunity to demonstrate that all of the years of practice, the evenings spent singing outside, and the comments he received about his unique voice meant something. Elvis, however, was afraid. He has never before participated in a really professional audition. He had performed at neighborhood gatherings, churches, and schools, but this was unique. Elvis was just a truck driver with a dream and a voice he wasn't even convinced was good enough, and this was the music industry. At last, at 3:47 p.m. Elvis pushed his way out the truck. For this, he had borrowed his father's nice shirt. His jeans had creases that could cut butter from all the times his mother pressed them. He had applied enough pomade on his hair to make it waterproof. He seized. Before he could decide otherwise, he grabbed his guitar from the passenger seat and headed for the door. Marion Kisker was at the front desk of Sun Records. She handled the majority of the walk-in auditions and was Sam Phillips's assistant. After hearing hundreds of hopefuls enter through that door, Marion could typically determine in less than 30 seconds whether a person was a waste of her time or had potential. As soon as Elvis entered, he felt uncomfortable. Pictures of actual musicians, people who had recorded, and important persons were plastered on the walls. And here he was, a mere child who worked for Crown Electric Company as a truck driver. Marion looked up from her paperwork and asked, "Can I help you?" Elvis cleared his throat. "Yes, ma'am," Marion said. "If you're hearing people today, I'd like to audition." "I mean, if that's possible." There was something about his focus that drew her in, even if he appeared anxious enough to throw up. The question that always tripped Elvis was, "What kind of music do you sing?" "All kinds, ma'am. I can sing ballads, gospel, country, blues, whatever you need." "Who do you sound like?" Marion had heard that response from singers who couldn't carry a tune before. "I don't sound like nobody, ma'am. I just sound like myself. I can record you doing a test track. It costs $4. If Sam likes what he hears, he might call you back for a real audition." Elvis's heart fell. He had exactly $3.72 in his pocket, which he had been planning to use to buy gas for the truck so he could get to work the next day. However, something about the way he said it, with equal parts pride and fear, piqued her interest. 72. "Is there a way?" Marion interrupted, saying, "That's fine," because she had previously broken this rule for children who obviously couldn't afford it. "Come on back." Elvis followed her into the little recording booth. His guitar. "What are you going to sing?" Feeling heavy in his hands, Marion set up the equipment and handed him a pair of headphones that had been patched with electrical tape. "It was my mama's favorite song," she said. "My happiness," Elvis replied. "All right, when you're ready," Marion said, and Elvis started to sing. At first, his voice sounded shaky, uncertain, but then something happened. He closed his eyes, forgot about the recording equipment, forgot about Mary and her watching him, forgot about everything but the song, and his voice found its groove, that special blend of country music. Marion's eyebrows went up. This kid didn't sound like the other country singers who came through, and he didn't sound like the blues singers either. He sounded like something in between, something she'd never heard before. Elvis finished the first verse and was about to enter the second when the recording booth door suddenly opened, and Sam Phillips entered, looking irritated. "Mary, what?" Sam stopped when he saw Elvis in the booth just doing a test recording. Marion said, "This is when I realized I don't know his name." "Elvis Presley, sir," Elvis said, taking off the headphones, his heart sinking. It was clear from Sam's expression that the audition was over when he crossed his arms and stared at Elvis for a long time. "Play me something else. Something up-tempo." Elvis's hands were shaking so much that he nearly dropped his guitar, and he began a fast-paced rendition of Arthur Crutup's "That's All Right," a blues song that had been on his mind for months. He sang it with all of his energy, giving it his all for 4 minutes, but at precisely 4 minutes in, Sam held up his hand and said, "That's enough." Elvis stopped mid-verse, his heart crashing into his stomach. "That's enough. What are you trying to do here, sir? What kind of music are you trying to make?" Because what I just heard was Sam pausing, trying to find the right words. "It's confused. You're mixing up blues and country like they're the same thing. You can't do that. You've got to pick a lane and stay in it." Elvis felt his face burning. "I just sing what I feel, sir." "Well, what you feel isn't commercially viable," Sam said bluntly. Marion began to say, "You're stuck in no man's land." Sam responded, "And that guitar playing, you're adequate at best. Your voice is interesting, I'll give you that, but interesting doesn't sell records." Elvis stood there with his guitar, feeling every word like a punch to the gut. "My advice," Sam continued, "is to stick to truck driving. You've got a steady job, right? Keep that job. Music isn't going to work out for you. You don't fit." "Yes, sir," Elvis said. "Anywhere. Thank you for your time." Elvis walked out of that recording booth, through the front office, and out to his truck. He made it about 30 feet into the parking lot before the tears started. He sat in his truck, crying so hard he could barely breathe, still clutching his guitar. Everything Sam Phillips had said echoed in his head. Too different, too weird, doesn't fit anywhere. Don't do anything other than driving trucks. Teachers claimed his voice was distinctive, and his mother had told him he was destined for greatness. But Elvis had spent years thinking he had something special. Now a true professional. Elvis cried in that parking lot for almost 2 hours after someone who truly understood the music industry told him that he wasn't good enough and that he would never be good enough. He watched the sun set, watched other people come and go from Sun Records, and watched his dreams turn to dust before something changed. Elvis wiped his eyes and looked at his reflection in the rear-view mirror. He looked like hell, his eyes red, his face blotchy, and his hair messed up from running his hands through it. But beneath all of that, he saw something else, his mother's face when she'd. Elvis became enraged after seeing the mechanic who had given him a job so he could buy guitar strings, the lunch lady who had fed him for free so he could pursue this dream, and everyone who had ever believed in him. Sam Phillips had said he was too different, but perhaps that was just what the world needed. He didn't fit anywhere, so perhaps it was time to find a place where he did. Elvis started his truck and drove directly to his parents' apartment, where he found his mother in the kitchen. She glanced at his face and knew something had happened. "Baby, what's wrong?" "I tried out at. That man doesn't know everything." "Mama, he's Sam Phillips. He knows the music business. If he says I'm not good enough, that man told you that you don't fit into the boxes he knows. That's his limitation, not yours. You're not supposed to fit into their boxes." Gladys grabbed her son's face in her hands. "Sun Records today," Elvis said. "Sam Phillips told me to stick to truck driving. He said my music was too confused, too different. I'd never make it. I sing country music with blues feeling. I sing blues music with country twang. I don't sound like anybody else, and that's not a good thing in the music business." "That's exactly why it's a good thing," Gladys insisted. "Baby, there are a million singers who sound like everybody else. The world doesn't need another one of those. The world needs someone who sounds like nobody else. The world needs you." Elvis wanted to believe her, but Sam Phillips' words were still fresh in his mind. Gladys said, "I'm going to tell you something. You remember when you were rejected from the school choir?" "Yes, ma'am." "And you remember what I told you then? You said being different was special. And I was right, wasn't I? You didn't need their choir. You've been making your own music ever since. This is the same thing, baby. Sam Phillips doesn't see what you are yet. But that doesn't mean what you are isn't. It just means he's not ready to understand it." Elvis sat at the kitchen table, his head in his hands. "Ma'am, I don't know if I—" That night, Elvis made up his mind, and he took the $3.72 out of his pocket and used it to buy a small notebook. On the first page, he wrote down exactly what Sam Phillips had said: "Too different, too weird, doesn't fit anywhere." "Yes, you can," Gladys said firmly, "because every time someone tells you no, you're going to use that as fuel, you're going to prove them wrong. Strong people take pain and turn it into power. Don't do anything other than driving trucks." "I'll show you what different can do," Elvis wrote beneath those words. Over the next few months, Elvis continued to practice, perform at local venues, and sing on the radio when amateur shows would have him. He also continued to develop that distinctive sound that Sam Phillips had written off as confused. Marion Kisker called Elvis in June 1954, just 5 months after that disastrous audition. Sam Phillips had been searching for a white singer who could sing black music with authenticity, and Marion had never forgotten the child with the unsteady hands and the unusual voice. Sam requests that you enter and take a recording. Marion asked if you were interested. Yes, ma'am, said Elvis, nearly dropping the phone. When? 7 p.m. tomorrow night. What about Elvis? Sam doesn't recall you from the January audition. Don't remind him. Simply enter and start singing. The following evening, Elvis arrived with his guitar and a racing heart. 2 session musicians, Bill Black on bass and Scotty Moore on guitar, were there with Sam Phillips. They spent hours experimenting with various songs and genres, but nothing seemed to click. Next, during a pause, Elvis began to tinker with the song, That's All Right, which he had been singing when he was stopped by Sam Phillips 5 months prior, telling him to keep driving trucks. However, something was different this time. Elvis was performing it for no one's admiration. He wasn't attempting to sound or fit into a certain type. He was simply playing, enjoying himself, and expressing his own style. After Scotty and Bill joined in, the room erupted in a noise that no one had ever heard before. Though it wasn't, it was country. Though it wasn't, it was blues. It was a whole different experience. With haste, Sam Phillips entered the recording room. What was that? What are you doing? Elvis halted, fearing he had made a mistake once more. I'm merely playing, sir. Repeat that, Sam insisted. Follow through on what you just did. That's okay, they taped it. In a single take. When it was finished, Sam Phillips' eyes were filled with awe as he gazed upon Elvis. I have no idea what that was, son, but it will be enormous. Elvis wanted to remind Sam that he had described the same approach as muddled and uncommercially viable 5 months prior, but he chose to remain silent and grin instead. July 1954 saw the release of That's All Right. It became the most requested song on Memphis radio within a few weeks. Elvis Presley played sold-out gigs in a matter of months. He became America's biggest star in under 2 years. Sam Phillips sold Elvis Presley's contract to RCA in 1956 for $35,000, which at the time was the highest Sam ever paid for a recording artist. Sam drew Elvis away during the contract discussions. You know what's funny? I almost let you slip away, said Sam. I told you to stick to truck driving when you came in for that test recording back in January of 1954. Do you remember that? Elvis took out his wallet and showed Sam the little notebook he still carried, which contained Sam's remarks about being too different on the first page, followed by Elvis's response, I remember, Mr. Phillips. I remember every word you said. It's okay, Mr. Phillips, Elvis said. You taught me something important that day. What is it? That when someone tells you you're too different to succeed, they're really telling you they're too limited to understand, and that's not your problem. It's theirs. Elvis kept that notebook for the rest of his life. He would pull it out whenever he felt discouraged or when someone told him he couldn't do something. Sam shook his head. I was wrong. Dead wrong. You weren't too different. I was too scared of different. Rejection isn't failure. It's just someone else's inability to see what you see in yourself. Sam Phillips' rejection in January 1954 could have put an end to Elvis's career before it even began, but instead it served as motivation to show everyone wrong. The man who told Elvis that he was too different to succeed ended up finding the most successful entertainer in history, but only after Elvis refused to accept that being different was a weakness. Sometimes the best thing that can happen to us is having someone tell us we'll never make it, because that's when we learn our true selves and whether we believe in our own abilities more than they do. If this story of rejection turned into motivation inspired you, please subscribe and share this video. If someone ever told you that you weren't good enough, tell us in the comments what you did about it. Sometimes the best retaliation is just proving them wrong by becoming exactly who you were meant to be. Elvis was told to stick to truck driving, but instead he drove right past everyone who doubted him and changed music history forever.